Bringing your full self to work. What does that actually mean? For those of you that have been following Sanctus for a while, you may be familiar with the phrase. It's something we've talked about since the very beginning.
I felt very much this need to present an image that I had it all figured out and I knew what was going on.
Feeling no need to be fake in the workplace, not feeling like you have to leave your personal life at the door. It makes sense, doesn't it? But as the Sanctus team has grown, then the idea of bringing your full self to work has proven to not always be such a simple concept. So after 2.5 years of us bringing our full selves to work, we thought we'd catch up with the Sanctus HQ team and find out, is it all we've cracked it up to be?
It's like that, what's that, like dead cheesy, like Marilyn Monroe saying?
Oh, John, you're not going to say
If
that.
you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me. It's literally that.
That is my favourite cheesy quote, but it's true.
Yeah, it's MSN status, like age 14
Yeah.
or something.
Being your full self, I guess some people would hear that and think that's just you bring absolutely everything.
Yeah.
But I think we've talked about this as a team where like it's more about bringing your wholeness, but also reserving the right to not bring some things.
Yeah.
Because if we did bring absolutely everything that was going on in our lives, god damn, like I'd never get any work done.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes
We'd
it
just
could be
talking
too
all the
much
time.
because we'd be like, oh, this happened, that
Yeah,
happened.
exactly.
So it's often when people talk about being their full self, I think what we tend to mean is there something about what's going on for you, what you're experiencing, that is costing you energy to hold in or to not share?
Yeah.
And sometimes, so for example, to be more present, which is how I think about it, it can be helpful to say, there is something going on for me. I'm not prepared right now to share more, but just to let you know that at the moment I'm coping with something else.
Yeah.
Already, when someone says that, I feel more connected to them because
Yeah.
it helps me make sense of how I'm experiencing them. I may be curious about what's going on, but I don't need to know.
But I feel like there are two separate pieces here. One is how much of your personal life you bring into work and how much of that you choose to share or you do share. And part of what I like here is it doesn't feel like there are aspects that are off the table that you can't talk about, you know?
No.
It doesn't feel like if you had a really wild night that it would be inappropriate to come in and say like, I'm actually like struggling today and I'm a bit hungover, that anybody would judge you for that. But that feels like one side. And then the other side for me about bringing your whole self has to do with how fully you show up at work.
Yeah.
And for me, that has to do with what aspect of the spectrum of emotions is okay to bring to work. And I think that's something that we do really well, and it feels like it ties in with our values of naming the elephant in the room and being bold and kind of saying the thing that needs to be said, but doing it from a compassionate place.
When I first got excited about this new way of working, as I think it is a new way of working, I think I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to be vulnerable all the time.
Yeah,
Just
that's
all
so
the time.
funny. I
Team
think I thought that.
meetings, leadership.
You know, let's face it, for both of us actually, we spent, 20 odd years of our lives not doing that,
Not
and then
doing
all of
it.
a sudden we've created this environment where you can actually bring your full self. It's almost like, the kid who's not allowed sweets being able to go and
100%,
eat like
yeah.
loads of sweets. It was almost like binging on feelings kind of
think
thing,
so.
wasn't it?
I found myself, especially from like the previous work environments I've come from, there was sort of this culture of you have to be okay and you have to conform to what their sort of ideal employee would look like. Whereas I feel like Sanctus has a lot more freedom behind it. But I do think a slight caveat towards that is I do find myself sitting in meetings and sometimes being like, am I being my full self?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm experiencing slight anxiety at the moment. Do I need to now voice that in order to be my full self? So I feel like there's an awful lot of unlearning by coming into a culture like this. But I feel in terms of like the bigger picture and working for the long term, I feel like it would benefit everyone. I just feel like it takes some time to adjust to.
So if you think about bringing your full self to work in terms of like, I have a good amount of self-awareness of where I'm at on any given day.
Yeah.
If, for example, I come in and I know that, I'm really drained today and maybe I need to go do something to give me energy, maybe I need to go to the gym, whatever it is at lunchtime. I think actually knowing what I personally need, given where I'm at, to get the best out of me in the workplace, I think that makes people like good employees.
Yeah, and it's not, but also it's not simple. It introduces another demand into your working day. I think I'm happy to take that on, but it also means that, like, if I sit in a meeting, I've got two tasks rather than one. One is the content or the objective of the meeting. The other is how is it for the people in the meeting.
Someone said that in our previous office actually. They said, you have so many meetings, how do you get anything done?
The downs is the emotional energy I think it takes.
Yes.
It does require a lot of emotional energy. I think you need to have a certain set of preconditions in the business, a certain set of amount of trust.
Yep, so I'd say like trust, no office politics.
Yeah, you just need to have certain leadership, probably.
I think it probably starts with the leaders.
Yeah,
really.
It definitely does. A level of self-support, so people can support themselves in their own life, kind of on their own. So you do need quite a lot to be able to hold it and to be able to do it, and it's hard.
You know, Ben and I, when we have meetings together, we can easily spend like an hour checking in and like having a really deep conversation about what's going on for us and how it's happening and, you know, how it manifests itself and all those things. And actually, I think there's a lot of value in that. I think it has made us, I mean, Ben is the closest working relationship I've ever had, and I think it's the strongest one I've had, and I really think it's because we do that. So it means we work really well together, but it is also slow. So when we work together, it is slow, and there's, you know, a tension between creating enough space to kind of connect with people and know them and know where they're at and get the information about how they're feeling about things.
I don't think that would be a balance that we will ever get spot on right
No,
as well,
that's
because I
probably
think that we
right.
will just constantly go back and forth with, maybe sometimes we'll be like, okay, no, we need to get into working mode right now, and then we're like, wait a minute, we haven't taken time to sit back, and something's felt missing, and then I think that will be a constant, just like up and down seesaw, sort of trying to work it out.
You can bring your full self, not you have to.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get it misconstrued by saying, okay, if we're in this culture, then I do need to bring my full self at all times, and that's where the pressure comes from. So it's quite, in a sense, the internal pressure. Whereas I think just by saying you can bring your full self, and especially what you said about just coming in and being like, you know, I've got stuff going on, which means I can't bring my full self. To be honest, I think that's extremely authentic in itself.
But at the same time, that idea of somebody saying, I don't want to talk about it, I'm not all there, that has happened multiple times. In my personal experience, like, people have said that to me, and probably the other way around. In the culture, that's always been, like, perfectly accepted.
Yeah.
However, there's still something there where, like, that is a big step. That is quite a large step to get there, as opposed
To say there is something going on, but I don't want to say more.
Yeah, as opposed to just holding something in because you don't want to put it out there.
Do the either or.
Yeah. It's kind of a different extreme in a way.
Yeah, that you can get really polarized like that,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Like, either I don't say it or I say it.
Yeah.
Which does feel really overwhelming. It's like then you're caught between sort of isolation and way too much exposure.
Yeah.
But that's not the invitation I would want to offer to somebody. It's not, which one are you going to choose?
Yeah.
All out or all
Yeah.
in? Like,
One other up, I think, is that I think actually what we've seen in our business is that emotions and feelings, when people bring that into the workplace, actually are another source of information.
Yes,
And I
that's
think
so
that
true.
I'm so passionate about that one, because I think so often as businesses we just look at numbers and we look at the commercials and we look at logic and rationale, and we maybe ignore gut and feeling. Yet actually, like, say me and you are making a decision about something and you just feel so off about it, there's just something in that.
Yeah,
like,
of
you
course.
can't ignore that.
You're picking up on
You're just
something as
picking
well.
up, yeah.
Thinking about, you know, if you're in a meeting or something and someone says, like, pisses you off, if you can bring your full self and just be like, oh, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Like, there's something about that that's like clicked something in me. Or if someone says something, you know, and you're, I don't know, you're really disengaged in a meeting, or you're really bored, bring in all that negative stuff as well. If you're able to do it in a bit more of like a skilled kind of way, it can be really good information, because it actually tells you what's kind of like underlying in team dynamics. And I think that's what makes you work better together. You know, saying like, I'm sorry, what you said earlier on upset me. I know you didn't mean it that way, but like, let's talk about it or something. Even being able to have those difficult conversations, which is what I think this allows for.
Yeah.
I've seen such a positive impact of that on our team and the way we can work
because it
together.
allows for disagreement and conflict.
Yeah,
in a
healthy
really
conflict,
way.
though.
Yeah.
And then when we're collectively struggling as a team, there's something about that is really, really rich and full of information, like you said, but it also can be a real slog to like turn up every single day and know that not just us as individuals, but Sanctus as a whole is struggling or going through a transitional period that's quite difficult for all of us.
When you allow people to bring all of them into the workplace, that means you have to support people when they're not great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yet, you also get them when they're fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
So, yes, you have to support them when they're not so good, but you get them at their best, their creative best. If you support people when they're not great, potentially, and that will happen to anyone in their life, like people are going to go through mental health issues, breakups, grief, you name it, it's all there in any human's life, and you're probably going to experience it whilst you're at work, because we all have jobs, or at least most of us do. But you're then going to get, if you support people there, you're then going to get them when they're feeling really good and they're performing at their best.
That's true.
I think you really truly need a culture within your company that has capacity to hold that. So previously, when I've cried in a meeting, it's been really awkward, and basically everything has stopped and everyone has been like, oh fuck, somebody is crying, we have to try to make her feel better, what's going on? Yeah. That is not constructive, and that's not what the emotion needs to do, and that's not what I need. When I've cried in a meeting at Sanctus, mostly we've like just given space to it and had a conversation about what is going on, and then we get to like touch on the information. But that takes a lot of holding ability as an organization, and it takes a lot of comfort with feelings and like a willingness to sit with some uncomfortable things. And I don't think every organization is able to do that and is sort of either connected enough or kind of highly skilled enough to hold difficult things to be able to do it. So I would say yes, and you need to be kind of culturally able to hold that degree. And it's not all or nothing. Of course, there can be varying degrees of how much it's okay to bring in what you're feeling. Might not be right for every company for people to have a really good cry in a meeting. And yet sometimes it's going to happen, and there is information and there's ways that all of those things can be useful, I think.
For me, the invitation, the way that I understand it, is to be here in a way that means you can be more present, that allows you to engage with your work in a way that also respects the range of needs that we all have. Yeah. And I'm in favour of finding whatever helps that.
I feel like for me, the invitation sort of gave me permission to realise and just be human, which wasn't something I used to do in my old workplaces. It would be a case of like, no, I have to be a certain way, and I have to conform to what they want. So yeah, I just feel having that invitation sort of made me feel I can be myself in this environment, but I can also just be myself outside of work. And if I'm not doing well, that's absolutely fine, but how can I work on that?
A simple one-line TripAdvisor review summary of this for me in terms of ups and downs of bringing all of you and your whole self to work would be basically that it's really hard, but it's really worth it in the long run. I don't think you're going to get short-term wins doing this. I think it's the kind of thing that pays off 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line, because the stuff that you're getting is connection, trust, belonging, strong interpersonal dynamics, better decision making, I would hope. But I think it takes a lot of practice and it takes time before you get to see the real benefit of it.
Yeah, this is like an investment. It's a marathon, not a sprint, actually, is a better way of putting it, because this isn't going to affect your bottom line tomorrow, is it?
No, I don't think so.